Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple of weeks. I've been on a work trip, like always, and I'm back for a handful of days. So, time to get a few things done here. As you can see, we got a new model on the channel. So, obviously this is a new Freewing SR71. Um, Definitely a cool model. In my opinion, one of the more exciting foam ARFs to have come out in the last few years. Last time there was a really exciting model, in my opinion, of this same level was probably the X-Fly B one was really cool for sure. But I think when the Freewing F14 came out, that was kind of like the first model that was really, really cool and different and complicated and had everything going for it for its time. Now it's kind of whatever, but at that time it was a really neat model. And in my opinion, this one kind of hits the same way, if you will. Super cool model. The SR71 is, in my opinion, probably one of the pinnacles of human engineering. I mean, it's just an incredible piece of aviation history at this point. I used to see them flying as a small child when I lived in Palmdale back in the late 80s when they were still in service. We used to see them flying over town and over the house pretty often. And yeah, so anyways, Blackbird is just an amazing airplane. Me being a Northrop Grumman employee, Lockheed is kind of like our nemesis. And but that being said, I mean, you can't deny that the SR-71 is probably one of the most iconic airplanes ever. So super neat model. And from what I've seen so far, it seems like they fly pretty nice for an SR-71. It's definitely a difficult airplane to model to get it to fly well, and it seems like they've done a pretty good job. I'm going to be making a few changes, nothing too crazy, at least not yet. But I really enjoyed. A lot of people had a lot of not great things to say about the E-flite SR-71. I happen to really enjoy flying this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. I had wished it was bigger, and well, now we have a larger option. So it is a little pricey, but it also has a lot of neat options on it as well. I mean, drag chute, that is super cool. So, and this poor old thing, this thing was in really good shape until I had a really bad hand launch with it one time, and that was the end of that. So now it's all hammered, and I haven't flown it in quite a long time just because, well, it got messed up, and I don't like flying with the gear on it, so unless you have somewhere nice to land it, which we do at our home field, I just haven't taken it. And honestly, I might bring it out at the same time I fly this, just for fun. Okay, so here's the plan. Another good news, I got the receiver for the P47, so this is the new 14 channel Synapse setup. Now you don't have to run the Synapse, you can just get the Power Save 14 channel if you want, and then you can add the Synapse, which obviously I'm going to. So definitely a wonderful combination that I'm just using in everything big that I have now. So the Synapse and the AS3X Plus is, in my opinion, one of the better gyro setups on the market. And the really cool thing is that you can get similar gyro performance out of the smaller Spectrum receivers. So my idea, one of the modifications I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove the factory gyro out of the SR-71, use a 10-channel receiver with AS3X Plus, and then I'll be able to dial in the gyro really, really well. And also the AS3X Plus and the Synapse technology, it's similar software, and so there is some heading hold built into the programming on the gyro, and you can change some of that, but basically what I'm hoping is that using AS3X Plus versus like a standard issue gyro like what the model comes with is that AS3X Plus will be able to stop the over rotation pitch at stall, and that's really what will kill you with this airplane, that and orientation. So I know a few guys have already crashed them because they got disoriented. It is a difficult shape to see, being all black especially. Things blend together, and if you're not really paying attention or if your vision isn't that great, it could probably get away from you. So, but the other issue is, and the little E-flite one especially, it happened to me a couple of times coming into land. The model gets to a point, a certain angle of attack, if you will, especially at low speeds, where essentially it stalls, but the forward fuselage is still making a lift, and then the model over rotates, and you really can't bring it back. You can't really get the nose back down at that point, and then it'll just kind of like flip-flop and flat spin to the ground. And that never happened to me up high, but it did happen a number of times down low next to turf, so thankfully it didn't really hurt it. But this one, you get into a flat spin with this, and you're gonna throw a bunch of money out the window. So you might get lucky, it might not be too damaged. I know it's already happened to a couple of guys, but essentially the CG is very sensitive. I was really hoping that the gear would be closer, so this right here is the gear bay. You can see through the top of the wing. That's where the gear are at, and the CG is way up here. So Two Brothers RC, they have a number of really cool slow motion videos where they're able to do touch and goes without dropping the nose, and that's really, really cool. And that's probably because there's so much lift coming from the front of the plane that it's holding the nose up, even though the gear is so far behind the CG. So anyways, I was hoping that they would move them a little bit closer to the CG so it would rotate a little bit nicer. It seems like it rotates fine, but you know me, I like to carry the nose on takeoff and then on landing as well, and I don't think this model can really do that well. But anyways, my hope is that I can get the CG a little farther back with AS3X Plus. I'm not going to get too carried away. I think stock CG there's a little mark down here. I think it's right here. It's pretty much at this panel line. So I talked to one of the motion guys, and they said they moved the CG back a little bit from there, but anything past that is not very safe. So anyways, the other thing is, a lot of guys are, running 5,000s, maybe 6,000s, and getting pretty mediocre flight times. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't care how cool it is, if I can't fly it for more than 3 minutes, that's pretty lame. I mean, you take off and you're pretty much get a couple of passes in, and it's time to land. That's not fun for me. So, for me running G2 7000s in this thing, I've already talked to a couple of buddies who tried to run this pack, and it won't CG. So there's 2 battery bays on this model, which is kind of neat that they did that. One bay holds all the radio equipment and a potential battery, and this one holds a potential battery. But there is a bulkhead in between, and this is where the fuselage comes together. And so, in order to get this battery where it needs, it's tail heavy if you put it back here, and it's nose heavy if you put it up here. So, essentially, it needs to be right in the middle, which is kind of a bummer. But I don't ever plan on taking this thing apart. I know it's a neat option to be able to do that, and they give you this cool little ribbon plug to be able to like just plug in all the nose stuff. And I'm still going to use that, but I'm going to have to remove this bulkhead where you plug it in, and I'm going to have to also modify a little bit this little plastic bulkhead that they got in here, which is actually really nice. It's just a little bit too small to get the 7000 in there. So for now, to run the current power system with a 7000, it's going to end up being right in this area here. So I got to modify that, and I'm also going to be splitting up. So all the servo wires come into this blue box, and everyone's familiar with those. It's like a junction box that kind of takes care of all the mixing and all that stuff. I don't care for that too much, because if that fails, you're kind of screwed. And there have been failures in the past. Not a lot, but it does happen. So I'm going to be removing all the Elevon servos from the blue box, running those into the receiver separately on their own channels, and then I'm also going to separate the nose gear from the blue box, the nose gear steering, and run that into the receiver, because AS3X Plus offers a nose wheel gyro. So I haven't tried that yet, and I'm curious to see how that works. So I'm going to try and set that up on this model. But anyways, I'm just already talking way too much. I'm already at 10 minutes here. So anyways, super exciting model. I think it could be, some small changes make it a little bit better, and we're going to be running some good stuff in here. So the hope is to fly it this Saturday, and Also really hoping to get the P47 flying this weekend. So that's where we're at. Let's get these mods done and show you guys how it looks. I also plan on doing some flat clear after I put decals on it, and then do some weathering with some fuel weathering. So I'm gonna take some gloss clear and brush it on, sweep it back in a few spots to make it look like leaking fuel. So anyways, way too much talking. Let's get to work here. All right, so the radio's all set up. I'll show you guys all that stuff in a second. Right now I'm just doing all the finishing touches. So I got the decals on it. I went with the low-vis scheme. Actually, this tail number is got a pretty cool story. This was the first airplane to do a official mission sortie. So, and this is the airplane that's in the United States Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. And that airplane was retired in 1990 and flown to the museum, which is kind of neat. What I've done here is I've done some kind of like shading with another flat black that's just ever so slightly different, and it's hard to pick up on camera. But I also painted over all the gear doors because they were shiny, and I painted a bunch of stuff inside the gear wells. You can see I painted all the control horns and all the screws and all that stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit this with a dull coat, just a real light coat, and then I'm going to brush on some gloss clear in the fuel areas, like streaked fuel. So I'm hoping that that gives it a neat effect. So going for a subtle weathering here, and I think it looks pretty cool. So let's get that done. And we're using Tester's dual coat because it's a nice flat finish, and if you dust it on, it's even flatter. So you definitely don't want to put it on wet. You just kind of haze it on to give it that right look. All right, so I've put the flat clear on it. You can see it kind of hides the decals a little better. And here's what I've done with the gloss clear brushed on the belly. If you don't know, the real SR71s leak out of the fuel tanks really bad when they're sitting on the ground. And until they get going really fast and up to temperature and all the panels expanded, they leak everywhere. So I thought it'd be cool to like use some gloss clear over the flat, kind of brush it back, make it look like it's been leaking fuel. And I think that looks pretty good. I don't want to get too carried away, but I still have a little bit to do on top. Most of it's going to be on the bottom, but there's a number of pictures where it's leaking out of the top of the tanks as well. So anywho, looks pretty cool. So let's get the top done, and that'll be it. All right, so we got the clear sprayed over the top. You can see it kind of evens out the decals, so you can still see that shine on them. Really no way to really get rid of that. You can see that I've toned down the tigers on here. The pictures of the real ones, they're pretty faded looking, so I didn't like how bright they were to begin with. So I kind of just hazed some black over them, and I think it really looks a lot nicer. So anyways, I'm getting ready to do the fuel leaks on top. Now, from all the pictures I've seen, they mostly leak from this region here, from this seam, and it streaks out towards the nacelles, actually, probably because of the vortex coming off of the leading edge. So anyways, and pulling it towards the nacelle, and then obviously some out of the refueling area. So anyways, the top's not going to be as much as the bottom, but yeah, we're going to throw some on here. And the way I'm doing that is I'm just taking gloss clear. This is just Rust-Oleum. And I'm spraying into the cap, and then I'm using a brush to brush it on. And then I'm using this tape to create a nice sharp line where that panel is at, so it doesn't get sloppy looking. And the way I did the black as well, I already put the can away. It's just some cheap stuff I bought at Home Depot. So I like cheap flat black. It always seems to work better. Basically, I just spray this into the cap and then pour that into my airbrush, and that's kind of how I do a lot of my little touch-ups and stuff. But anyways, let's get these fuel streaks on here. Okay, there you have it. Pretty much done. So I got the streaking done on top. Looks really cool. It turned out like I was hoping it would. So I mean, a lot of this little detail stuff you kind of lose on camera, but in person it looks really, really sharp. So I'll show you guys how I ended up with a battery area here to get the CG with a 7000 and where I put my receiver. So what I have going on here is essentially the battery comes right to there. So what I had to do was I had to hog out the little plastic walls on the sides to get this pack to fit. And then what I did was, I'll pull the pack out here in a second, but I essentially moved the connector for the front half of the airplane to the side. And then I got this glued in place here. I had it originally back here, but I was like, I don't really want to take both hatches off every time. So I ran the wire up to the front, and the receiver's mounted on the sidewall here. One antenna comes out here into the wing, just poke a hole into the foam. The other one is laying flat on the belly here. Yeah, so you can see the original gyro is no longer there. Let me get this battery out and I can show you guys that connector. Okay, so you can see how I ran the ribbon connector up here. You can see it up against the wall there. And I just had to notch out a little bit of the foam. Just hot glued that in place, ran the wires down the trough that it originally was in, and that's it. So this allows me to really get the CG where I want it. Right now I'm about a 1/4 inch behind the marks, and from what I'm told, that's still safe. So I'm going to start with that, see how it goes. I do have AS3X Plus completely set up. I will have to dial that in, I'm sure. Kind of just guessed at some settings for now. And also have the steering gyro set up, which is a neat feature with AS3X Plus. So I have all that stuff set up. I have all the flight controls set up. So let me get the battery back in, the radio powered on, get the gear dropped out, and then I can show you guys the wheel wells and stuff underneath as well, how I kind of painted all that stuff up. But yeah, let's get this thing turned over. Alrighty, so you can, with the glare here, you can see the fuel leaks. Looks really cool. So I got the gear dropped out, and now I'm going to show you guys the control setup. So I went a little different than what the standard issue is here. So on the real SR71 and with the Freewing model, the way they have it set up is both surfaces on each side act as elevons, meaning they both work for roll and pitch. I have separated all these into 4 different channels because I wanted to try something. And these inboard control surfaces obviously doing a lot for pitch, not so much for roll, seeing as how close they are to the roll center of the airplane. So what I've done here is I have just using the outboard surfaces for roll, and then all 4 for pitch. So my hope with that is that I can get a little more resolution on the roll rate and a little more resolution with the gyro setup as far as roll stability. I say that because it'll take more throw with just the outboard surfaces than if I had both on each side working. And what that allows is for a little bit more resolution, hopefully some more sharpness in roll and roll stability. And that's the hope anyways. I can always change it to be the standard setup. But essentially, now when you're pulling up, and you'll still have these, being a narrow wing delta like this, it does not take a lot of control throw to get a really fast roll rate on a delta. So I am not concerned at all that there won't be enough roll authority, but I can always turn it up. I've got it way turned down on roll right now. But anyways, that's how I have it set up. And then I have my rudders on separate channels, so I can also adjust them individually and create offset if I want to. And then, like I said, I have the nose wheel on its own channel, and that's set up with the nose wheel steering gyro. So that's the reason why I'm using a 10 channel. But yeah, so let me get this thing flipped over and show you guys the belly. Here we are at the bottom. So you can see, if you have one of these, you know that there's a bunch of there's some white plastic in here, white plastic clevises, things like that. And then these doors are just black plastic, so they're glossy. So all that's been painted. I painted the actuator struts there. The fuel leaks on the bottom turned out pretty cool. I almost feel like I should put more on the bottom. But I also used some lube on the wheels and the struts. You can see some of it's on the tire there. It's all right. It's for realism. These things sound super clanky when you get them out of the box because there's no oil on them or anything. And what I'm using is a really thick oil, and I use it on the struts as well. It's actually a power steering stop leak fluid, so it's very thick and it sticks around. It doesn't just drip off. So, at least for the most part. So, anyways, yeah, I love the little lights in this thing. Landing lights are pretty sick, pretty bright. Look at that simulated fuel leak. That turned out pretty cool. Anyways, yeah, let's put this thing on the ground and give you guys a last look, and that'll be it for this video, which has already gone way too long. The old parachute shot here. Kind of playing with the steering gyro too. This is my first time using a steering gyro. So make sure it's covered. There we go. Nice. That worked pretty good. I know this thing is pricey, guys, but parachute from the factory, come on. That is super, super cool. I was kind of worried you weren't really going to be able to taxi with the chute, but that taxi is just dandy. So anyways, I guess there you have it, guys. We're going to probably fly it on Saturday. Today is Wednesday. So, yeah, look forward to flying this thing, getting the AS3X Plus all dialed in, and yeah, it's pretty cool model. I've had a lot of Freewing airplanes over the years, and I would say quality-wise and overall impression of the airplane, it's one of their better models. I would say the MiG-29 is probably right up there with it as far as like quality and size and whether it's worth it or not. It's a beautiful model, really well done, and hopefully with AS3X Plus and a couple other tweaks it can be even better. I do plan on at some point putting a couple of E-flite 80mm fans in this, like out of the F-16, so run 2 5,000s in it probably, but for now we're going to run the 7,000 Smart Pack, see how it goes. And we'll take it from there. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.